Hello YouTube, I'm Chris,
I'm Will.
and we are Hacknojam. The movie we'll be analyzing today is David Fincher's Zodiac.
So let's find more about Zodiac, shall we? Pay attention and
Learn a lot.
this is the opening scene of the movie after the first Zodiac murder, which ultimately shows Jake Gyllenhaal and the letter of the Zodiac killer, which foretells that this film will revolve around the relationship between these two people.
First, let's start with the depiction of time and space in the film. The film gets pretty confusing by jumping through time and space to cover a long period of time and a wide range of locations.
Do you see the calendar in the back? In the movie, Fincher shows the passage of time by placing different objects that signify specific periods of time, such as calendar, news articles, change in the design of Coca-Cola vending machines, Slinky commercial,
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Bill.
birthdays of Bill Armstrong, radio station, timeless of an architecture, the Zodiac book that Gyllenhaal's character later writes, and more.
He also used many symbolic and specific landscapes, such as the Port of San Francisco, the San Francisco Chronicle, local police station, bar, TV station, and more to clearly specify where the story was taking place.
One scene that integrated this too so well was the montage shot in the middle of the film. It shows how time is flying by so fast, and the detectives are still struggling to catch the killer despite all the letters that are being sent to the newspaper.
Fincher specializes in creating depth and liveliness in characters and situations with minor details in each scene. Let's look at the first murder scene in the opening. We can't relate to anything right now because we don't know anything about these two characters.
Where have you been? I've been waiting since 7.
Get in, I have to find fireworks.
Let me drive.
But this dull scene suddenly receives a small conflict when he showed his desire to take over the wheel.
Are you coming or not?
And the resolution of this conflict led to show the characters and relationship of these two individuals.
Instead of shooting it normally, they shot the murder scene with a high-speed camera to slowly alleviate the tension that was immensely built up until the shooting.
By asking his son to take his book, it revealed what's underneath. The code books, an integral part to the plot of the film, in a very natural way.
How dull would the scene be if it didn't break the lamp?
Whoever this is, you owe me a new lamp.
Just having Mark Ruffalo do it by accident showed his character and the nightly routine of his house that his wife is used to.
Placing Mark Ruffalo's wife between him and the inline phone indirectly portrayed how his life as a detective is affecting the family as a whole in a very cinematic way.
On television?
Just watching them talk about birthdays
It's your birthday.
and how the partner takes care of Ruffalo's animal crackers shows a lot about the interesting relationship between Mark Ruffalo and his partner.
Do you see how he picks out the tomatoes before eating it? This tiny detail adds more realism and liveliness to the character.
Let's look at this extra with the yellow sweater. He gets up from his desk to walk away from the screen, comes back with a cup of coffee, and gives Shorty his change. It reveals what he was doing outside of the screen to the audience. It's wonderful to see how Fincher is obsessed with adding precise detailed movements even to extras.
You can see people touching the Zodiac's letter with a pencil to avoid leaving fingerprints. Mark Ruffalo is even wearing his gloves. This totally contrasts with how they deal with the letters in the beginning of the film, showing how they became accustomed to the letters, which became part of their routine.
No pens, no paper. Anything that you see that's relevant, you gotta remember in your head.
Elias Koteas tells Gyllenhaal no writing is allowed. However, in movies, it's always more revelatory to see than hear. Him grabbing the pencil from Gyllenhaal's front pocket shows what he means by it in the clearest way possible.
The cacophonic sound along with Gyllenhaal's mumbling through the articles created an intense, urgent ambience for the audience.
Man, you really creeped us out.
And the sounds of the laughters, the voice of the victims, and the car brakes from the murder scene gave a feeling as if the murder scene was happening right in front of our own eyes.
You're in her pain.
Do you see the badge "I'm not Avery" on Downey Jr.'s chest? He also carries his gun all the time, which both show how nervous and threatened he feels from the Zodiac killer.
No, Chief, I have 3 daughters of my own.
Although they never actually appear in the movie, what his wife is doing in the scene basically tells us that Ruffalo has many daughters in the household.
If you ever passed out in a car after a rough night, you'd know the disgusting smell that reeks the car. Which is why it was a little disappointing to see how Gyllenhaal did not react to the smell when the window was opened.
He's waiting for the result of the test to determine whether the suspect matches the Zodiac or not. Instead of having the camera focus on Dermot Mulroney, he himself walks towards the focus area to delay the focus.
No.
Which showed the anxiety of the people waiting for his answer, as well as emphasizing his dialogue that was to be delivered next.
This can no longer be ignored. What is that you're drinking?
If it tastes so delicious, they probably would have drank them all. But to make sure we know that they've been drinking Aquavelva, they made sure there were still some left in some glasses so we can visually understand it.
Here, Fincher uses the layout of the house to cinematically show the conflict of the two characters, literally showing a wall that exists between the characters both physically and psychologically.
Screen composition is very interesting in Zodiac. First, many of the shots are very multi-dimensional with a lot of depth. It distinctly shows all layers of foreground, middle ground, and background by placing actors, objects, and lightings to emphasize depth. Fincher even places an extra somewhere we cannot see in the shot until the camera movement in the end.
Fincher never places actors in a cinematically dull way. In the film, people always are either sitting on a desk, standing up, or doing both, or standing in the background and foreground, or on different floors so they'll be looking up and down to see each other. All of this is to provide dynamics in the conversation scene to have it visually more interesting.
As for the angle, instead of using horizontal or vertical lines, he chooses to use diagonal lines that is more visually enticing.
Sometimes, to show the psychological aspect of characters, actors are placed between other actors to give the viewer the feeling that they're being trapped.
We need to talk. I'm the Zodiac.
Fincher often put funny dialogues or situations in order to loosen the tension of the film and to give some breaks through the long running time.
Does it ever bother you that people call you Shorty?
Does it bother you that people call you a retard?
Nobody calls me that. Hey, we found Linda. She's in jail. Isn't that great?
Is this some sleazy plan to get me to go home with you?
What? No.
One unique aspect of the film that we cannot ignore is the usage of color. Many scenes in Zodiac are constantly composed with mainly 3 colors: yellow, blue, and red. While the first half of the film, where the Zodiac killer was central to everyone's life, was shown with the color yellow, the second half of the film, where it's forgotten and became history, was shown with blue. We interpreted the usage of the colors as to symbolize the transition of time, from a period of active investigation to a period of the forgotten. But we think there still might be a room for analyzing what each color specifically represents. So if you have any opinion on this, please leave your comments below.
You shouldn't smoke. It's a bad habit.
Our new section is scene by scene. This is a new feature that we're starting this week, which will focus on and analyze specific scenes that were flawlessly directed and executed.
This is a scene at the Riverside Police Station. The old police officer doesn't even look eye to eye or shake hands with the other 2 people who are behind him. This could be a certain trait that we can find in people who have worked at one job for a very long time, but it also shows his character and how little he cares about their visit.
To show that the Riverside cops are not even close to being on the same page as Mark Ruffalo and the guys, the actors were both placed on the long ends of the table. Also, while Fincher put the Ruffalos in chairs, one of the Riverside police officers sitting on a desk, while the other is standing against the wall, creating a difference in eye level heights. This composition adds dynamics to the scene, as well as visually portraying the fact that each side is looking at the same case from a very different view.
If you look at the Ruffalo side, these guys aren't sitting in one line. It seems as they purposely put the other two actors on each corner of the end to show that every one of them is from a different region with a different task. This actually gives a great advantage of seeing all their faces from any camera angle. And while Fincher put Donald Logue and Mark Ruffalo in the same shot, he never put Zach Grenier with any other one except in a shot where all three are in. This clearly states the different positions they're in. Mark Ruffalo and Donald Logue are investigators, while Zach Grenier is from Justice, mostly an observer.
The Riverside cop in the back is chewing gum and his hand is grabbing onto his belt, which gives the impression that the Riverside cops are indifferent towards Ruffalo's words and are not taking this case seriously at all. By not even touching the files that Ruffalo gives them, it just tells how little he cares about anything they have to say, because they already have an ongoing investigation on their own.
First, Fincher grabs our attention by intentionally pointing out the broken Coke machine.
Coke machine's busted, by the way.
Which appears twice more in the film. Each time, the design of the machine changes, indirectly showing how much time has passed between scenes.
Here, Fincher intentionally tilts down the camera to focus on how John Carroll Lynch shuffles his leg, which is an important clue in the film in the investigation. When they introduce themselves to John Carroll Lynch, they are not polite. Instead of handshakes, they just nod their heads, suggesting they aren't here for a friendly chit-chat.
When the detectives attack Lynch with questions, Lynch calmly crosses his leg in a very relaxed way and gives out information that could be used against him. He's in his comfort zone, and he's not here to be played with, but to play with them. He also corrects his name calling from Arthur to Lee with a very deep voice.
Lee. Nobody calls me Arthur.
Which becomes a war of nerves between him and the detectives, as the detectives continue to call him Arthur.
This is the face-off between Lynch and the detectives. A series of center-medium close-up shots shows each detective coldly gazing directly at the camera and Lynch's reaction to them.
I'm not the Zodiac.
Instead of being intimidated by them, Lynch firmly stands on his own feet with confidence and looks straight at the camera as if he's talking to the audience. It's a well-executed shot, effectively utilizing the strength of medium close-up shot.
Very nice house.
Many small unnoticeable movements like locking a door after coming inside or boiling water for tea eventually become essential parts in heightening the tension of the sequence to its peak.
By including the facial expression of Gyllenhaal and Charles Fleischer in one frame, maximize the tension here. They also put the lighting below Fleischer to make his face more horrific to accentuate fear.
And having Gyllenhaal turn back and look straight into the camera directly tells the audience that this sudden realization could lead to a serious danger to Jake Gyllenhaal.
The basement where they have to find the record has no lighting. Because of this, we're not allowed to see what the potential suspect Fleischer is doing, which makes this scene even more creepy.
Adding the wood creaking sound made the situation even more intense, and by slowly tracking in from a medium close-up to a close-up shot, gave more impact than a slow movement normally provides. As if we are carefully absorbed into the fear that Gyllenhaal is feeling, the audience becomes one with Gyllenhaal and gets further away from Fleischer as he steps back. And here, the darkness that comes from Fleischer turning off the light gives an additional fear that increases the horror we are already feeling. Along with other features, the loud noise from the kettle also heightens the level of intensity of the scene.
The mirror that was placed in the background was effectively used in this scene. Had Fleischer just come into the screen, due to it being a waist shot, we wouldn't be able to see what he's doing with his hands. His hands in his pocket, along with his calm face, and the lighting that hides his eyes is providing more fear than it normally does. When he reaches to open the door, it feels as if he's about to stab Gyllenhaal's stomach with a knife, because all of these elements were set up properly to maximize the tension of the scene.
Good night, Mr. Graysmith.
This is all we have for the video. If you have any other opinions or want to see any additional stuff, please leave your comments below.
I'm very sure that's the man who shot me.
Otherwise, see you next week.
Thrown like a star in my eyes, sleep, I open my eyes to take